Today we're going to look at how to customize the visual experience of RadCoverFlow. RadCoverFlow is part of the Telerik Rad controls for Silverlight WPF control suite for .NET XAML development. In this video we will learn how visual experience of RadCoverFlow can be easily changed by several properties. From determining the offset, rotation, and even the reflection height, RadCoverFlow has you covered. Let's go ahead and jump back into Visual Studio 2010 and take a look at several of these properties. So if you watched the first part of the series, you would have seen us build the RadCoverFlow and add several images to it. And this is basically the first project that we worked on. So we had a RadCoverFlow, and then we added several images to it. And then if we go ahead and we run the application, then you can see where we started. So we're going to begin by going back into Visual Studio and starting to customize several properties that are built into RadCoverFlow. So let's go ahead and let's just scroll down just a tad where you'll still be able to see the designer window, but also where we're going to be able to come underneath our RadCoverFlow and add some properties and see them real time in the designer. So the very first thing that I want to mention is that the orientation is horizontal by default, but you can change that by coming in to the RadCoverFlow, typing in orientation, and actually changing that to vertical. Once you change that to vertical, there's also another additional property that's called the camera viewpoint. And with the camera viewpoint, we're going to want to have our images centered on the screen. So we can go camera viewpoint and we can select center. So in this sample, it's probably best to actually show it inside of the browser, and we can see here that we now have a vertical RadCoverFlow. Let's go ahead and jump back into Visual Studio and change this back to where it was, where we can see some other properties. So we can also easily change the X offset by toggling the property called offset X, and by default it's set to 0. And if we went ahead and we typed in maybe a 50 here, you'll see in real time it change on our screen. So another offset that you may want to change is our Y position. So from Y we could type in maybe a 150 here, and you'll see that our Y offset has been changed. Let's go back and let's toggle another property called distance from selected item. So I can go in here and we'll type in distance from selected item, and we'll just change this to maybe a -75. And you can see now we have set the distance from the selected item. There's a couple of other properties that you may want to check out. So we just looked at the distance from selected item. We can also change the distance between items, and we'll just change 35 here, and we will actually need to look at it inside of the browser to see the difference here. So we just set it to a 35. So you may not want the reflection. You can easily turn that on or off by going into is reflection enabled and setting that to false. And if we run our application very quickly, you will see that the reflection has now been removed. We can even set the reflection opacity. So we'll just come back and we'll remove this property that we just set. By default, the reflection is enabled, and we will just go ahead and set the reflection opacity property to a 0.2. If you can see down here in the designer, it's just barely visible. We could also change the animation that's used, so we'll just go ahead and we'll remove our reflection opacity. We'll run it again where you can see the current animation, so you can see as it's animating through. We'll go ahead and we'll change this animation by going ahead and we'll double click in our main page .xaml.cs, and underneath the initialize component I'm just going to paste in a bit of code here. So we're using the bounce ease which is part of the system.windows.media.animation class, and this is basically just going to represent an easing function that creates an animated bouncing effect. So we're setting the ease in mode to ease out, the number of bounces to 2, and then the bounciness to 2, and then we're setting our RadCoverFlow1.easing function to a bounce ease. So if we go ahead and we run our application now, we can see the bounce. And of course, it's not just limited to that one animation. There's plenty of other animations readily available. So again, thank you for watching part 2 of the series. The next part of the series, we will be integrating the RadCoverFlow with the listbox control. So thanks for watching, and please tune in to tv.telerik.com for more videos, and check out blogs.telerik.com for the latest news and announcements.